patient with Parkinson's may tell you, first of all, we have to look at their risk. Is there a family history of Parkinson's? How old are they? Because we understand that age is probably the number one, quote-unquote, environmental factor that leads to the predictability of the disease.
Okay.
So the older you are, the likelier you are able to get such a diagnosis if you have the risk factor. So once we determine that your age and your family history fits, then we have to ask about the symptoms. So do you have the so-called tremor? So they usually get a resting tremor. So at rest, their hands may be shaking. And then there's the rigidity where they are actually stiff in their movements. And also the so-called shuffling gait, where instead of, you know how you walk, you take one step at a time. They can't lift their feet off the ground. So it's like they're shuffling when they are walking. So that's what we call the shuffling gait. And then they have this pill rolling rigidity and also slow movements. Like they think about the movements, but the process that happens in the brain to make that happen, if I want to pick up something from this table right here, I just stretch my hand out. But somebody with Parkinson's, you can see that hesitation in how they would slowly get to it. That's what we call bradykinesia, or a slowing of the movement, generally.
Okay, so would we want to establish how Parkinson's is passed on, or how you acquire, in your terms, Parkinson's? Is it hereditary, or you have to, or you can actually get it along the line if
right.
if you may?
So while there may be a genetic baseline risk, it is not necessarily hereditary. Hereditary would imply that if your relative has it, and depending on the inheritance pattern, whether it's like, I don't want to get too technical.
Yes, please.
Yes. So there are some diseases that if your mom has it, you would get it, 100%, like 50%, or there's a 50-50 chance. Yeah. Parkinson's is not necessarily like that. Yes, even though there are certain variants that we are discovering now that have that genetic predisposition. So like in the Jewish population, if you go to the US, in other parts of Europe, the Ashkenazi Jews, they have a 15 to 20% chance of developing Parkinson's than the general population, because there's a specific gene that they tend to have a mutation of. So in that light, you can talk about the possibility of it being hereditary. In actual fact, not all those with that gene mutation also end up getting it. So again, it becomes a question of probability. So baseline, you have a genetic risk, and then you're going to have environmental factors, like there are certain things that we know. For example, Muhammad Ali had Parkinson's, and we understand that traumatic brain injury is also a predisposing factor. There are certain chemicals, we can talk about things like some herbicides like paraquat, which is banned in about 70 countries, but we still use it here in Ghana. Yes, and when you get exposed to these chemicals, it increases the likelihood that you would have Parkinson's if your age and family history and genetic risk is strong enough. Then on the flip side, there are things that you could probably be doing that would decrease the likelihood that you get that diagnosis. So like exercise, consumption of coffee or caffeine, those tend to be protective against Parkinson's. So it's like...
Coffee?
Yes.
Oh, coffee can be good. Hey, look at us. I see. And never... Wow.
Yeah.
How come I haven't looked that up? Anyway, now let's come to our physio in the house, because we'll come back to the cure and all of that.
Sure.
But let's talk about the role of physiotherapy in all of this.
Okay, so as a physiotherapist, my role is basically movement, because like what he said about the tremor, the shaking, Parkinson's disease does not have a cure. But my role is to help the patient manage the shaking. Okay, and then with Parkinson's disease, there's constantly stiffness. There's like the lagging of movement is very difficult for a Parkinson's disease patient. It's very difficult because one thing you always find out with a Parkinson's disease patient is that, one, stiffness of the pelvic, or let me put in the waist. They have this. They don't stand, their posture is not the best. They always kind of look down this way. Just the way you are looking at me straight, they will find it difficult to look upright. They are always kind of this looking down. Yes. Another thing is that maybe if I have a cup of coffee here and I say pick it up, the transmission or the signal from your central nerve system or the nervous system to the brain to pick up the coffee is gonna be a little bit difficult because with Parkinson's disease, we have something called the dopamine, and with such patients, when they don't get enough production of dopamine, it's either it's very lagging or it's dead. And when we define dopamine is in a simple term, it's like feeling. We call it the feel good hormone, which helps to transmit signal from the brain to the body of movement.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk about at what point does a Parkinson's disease patient decide, because I like the way he pronounced it.
Yes. There's an S.
Parkinson's disease patient has to, visit their, at what point in this entire cycle of both developing and then eventually just knowing that you live with the disease, at what point do you invite a physiotherapy into the story?
Okay, here's the thing. One, what I want to clear is that not a lot of people do know about Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, so
not a lot.
Yeah, so I think Doc will establish what. I want us to focus on the physio.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to say, because not a lot of people will know that there's even such a condition called Parkinson's disease. Because even when maybe I will say, oh, there's a possibility of Parkinson's disease. Oh, what is that?
Yeah.
They don't know. And what I want to share my experience is that when was like the question you asked.
Yeah. So I'm saying that
at what point? Here's a case that obviously it's a channel. Maybe the doctor has to obviously diagnose that the patient has Parkinson's disease. Obviously, okay, now you have to go for physio. Here's a case that some people don't go to the doctor. You already see the symptoms of Parkinson's disease, but to be sure, obviously, I will have to be like, okay, if you are not aware of such a disease, then you will have to go to the doctor. So basically, to explain
you properly,
exactly, yes.
But just to add to what Elvis is saying, physiotherapy is indispensable in the treatment of Parkinson's. So from the moment we diagnose you, you are starting physio.
Exactly.
Immediately.
Immediately, yes.
Immediately, because the symptoms are usually that of movement. It affects their movement. So they are subject to falls and stiffness, like you were saying. So the role of physio in that cannot be understated.
Okay, now let's talk about the various treatments or exercises or treatments you give to patients, whether it's at the developing stage or...
Obviously, it depends on the situation.
Oh, okay.
I would just want to clear, because there are some situations it's so bad.
Okay.
Because there are some situations that are so bad that I had to deal with patients that had Parkinson's disease plus a stroke. And it's very difficult to deal with such patients. Here's a case that, obviously with the stiffness, believe it or not, I have to do spinal adjustment for the patient to be able to move or feel a little bit flexible. But it's just for a temporal time. Another thing is that, like I said, the movement. We have specific exercises. Maybe when we get to the practicals, I will show those specific exercises.
The practicals, are you using me or...
No, I won't use you. Why should I use you?
Elvis, I don't know which model you are bringing to my studio, but we're going to have to deal with that later.
No, but not to you, definitely.
It's certainly not me.
Definitely not you.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, so there are specific exercises. And with the Parkinson's disease, there's constant tremor, or let me put it, the shaking, uncontrollable shaking. That is our goal, to manage less of the shaking. So there are very specific exercises. Maybe, for example, pick a pin. Picking a pin is full of concentration.
Yeah.
Just to pick a pin. You know, when people, when they're sewing, that thread that you have to...
Yes.
That's also another exercise we have to get patients to be doing, for them to concentrate. And and when you're concentrating, most patients are shaking. So the goal is for them to actually try to
be able to do that.
Yes.
Because even for people who are not living with Parkinson's disease, it's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult because, like I said, movement becomes very difficult because as we walk normally very quickly, they will take time. Like Doc said that the movement becomes hesitant. Like they hesitate to move. Maybe I'll say, okay, pick this phone. It takes time for them to process
That
I have to take the phone, or can you pick my phone for me? It takes time for the patient to actually process that, to pick up the phone quickly and give it to me. Yes, so.
interesting.
Yes.
So that's another way of managing.
Yes.
So, Doc, are we saying that Parkinson's disease is not curable at all?
There's no established cure.
Cure,
Yes. Cure in the sense that we do A, B, C for you and
it's gone.
it's gone. There's no such thing in existence. It's a matter of managing the disease, reducing the debilitating effects, the things that would reduce the patient's quality of life, their mood swings that are associated with it, struggle with
It
sleep.
affects your mood?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So what you need to understand is dopamine as a neurotransmitter and a hormone has a role to do with how you literally enjoy the pleasures of life. When you hear exciting news and you are pumped up, that is the effect of dopamine. When somebody you like shows up in your presence, like when Elvis did,
It's not like I like him, but let's move
you lit up, right? So all that is under the influence of dopamine. So now the whole problem with Parkinson's is the part of the brain that produces dopamine is gone. They are losing neurons. And usually it gets to up to 50% before you start seeing the symptoms of the disease. So by the time you start getting to the mood and sleep disturbance, then you can tell that it's a really advanced disease at that point. So that's why they have the mood disturbances. The part of the brain that releases and produces dopamine gets affected.
Interesting. So, and then with that, how do you then manage that?
Right. So medically, we give them dopamine analogs. Okay. Now the problem is if you give dopamine itself, dopamine number one doesn't cross to the brain where you actually need the dopamine to effect its function. There's the so-called blood-brain barrier that separates whatever is in your blood from getting into the brain. It only allows specific compounds. So dopamine itself doesn't work. So we give a pro form of dopamine, which is what we call L-dopa, which can actually cross into the brain. And then in the brain, there are some processes that happen to actually make it available dopamine for your central nervous system. And that significantly improves the symptoms of people diagnosed with Parkinson's. The challenge is we know that earlier use of L-dopa improves the odds of the disease. That is how long you're going to, live without very significant disability. So the earlier you start L-dopa, the better. When you start it late, it doesn't appear to have such an influential impact in the quality of life. That is why emphasis is now trying to be placed on early diagnosis. So once we determine that you are at risk and you have it, we can start the L-dopa and other physiotherapeutic maneuvers soon enough before you actually progress to the end stage of the disease.
Okay. So run me through how fast this progresses without physio, L-dopa, or anything that you use in managing the disease. Run me through how fast it progresses.
So what you're asking is what we call the natural history. What would happen to a disease if nothing is done, the natural progression of the disease. First of all, we need to establish that it is a disease that is seen predominantly in individuals above 60 years old. There are certain variants where we have early onset Parkinson's, where you have younger individuals, 40 and below, also manifesting symptoms. So number one, if an individual above 60 years old starts exhibiting hesitancy, like you were saying, pick something up from the table and then there's
this tremor going,
or even walking about becomes difficult, they are moving slowly, their posture is stooped, like Elvis was alluding to, that is a telltale sign that the physical symptoms that we know have already set in. And from there, if we don't do anything to intervene, you know the way the body works. Once it adapts to a new posture, it wants to stay there. Okay, once you start developing stiffness and you don't work around helping the body try and circumvent that, then it becomes more and more of a problem over time. So we are looking at a rapid deterioration without any form of intervention. We are looking at a couple of years at most without any intervention.
So there's, and this one is a message that just came in from a viewer. He says there are people whose head shakes when they're talking. I don't know what exactly they mean, but not the Indian type, not the Indian type. But you know, like I think I have an idea of what the viewer is asking. Right. But the head shakes, it's involved. It's
not a classic symptom.
It's not a classic symptom.
It's not a what we classically see is the
whole body shaking,
the tremors. Okay, we call it the pure cogwheel rigidity with pure rolling tremors. So like if somebody is rolling a pill, it's so classic. Once you
like I usually say it's like as if you have malaria and you start shaking.
Yeah, those chills.
You get that chills and you can't control the chills.
Exactly.
You can't control the chills. Yes.
So let's talk about complications that people living with such patients should look out for. In terms of, you know, we've started the procedure. Has there ever been a case where you started the procedure of management? So physio is doing their bids, doctors are also doing their bids, but there are just, you know, some significant complications that show up, but they're not ones that are usually there, but we should look out for.
Well, the challenge is they are likely to fall. Okay, because they have postural instability and they struggle with actually moving their feet. So already at 60 plus, when is the age group that we expect this disease, if you should sustain a fall, the likelihood of a fracture is high. So I would caution that relatives that live with individuals with Parkinson's should try as much as possible to prevent that from happening. Because once a fall comes and there's a fracture or an injury, then we are dealing with something altogether, because at that age, you don't heal very well. It takes longer, and already your bones lose density. They lose strength after 30 years old. About 1% of total bone density declines year after year after year after year. So by 60, you have frail bones, and especially for women, when menopause also comes in the picture, then we are looking at a significant reduction in your bone mass. Hence, if you sustain a fall, hip fractures, femur fractures, which are going to be quite debilitating. Okay. Yeah.
Now, so we're going to get into the practicals very soon. For someone coming into your outfit with signs or symptoms of Parkinson's disease, which means that they're what do you call it? The tremor and all of that. What will be the procedure? Run me through it, because we're about to. Please, where's the model? Because certainly it's not going to be me. Where is the model?
I'm so happy it's not you.
Oh, God. My producers, I need my module, so we put them on here.
So, okay, so I'll just, well, this is just, so it's simple. This is something simple, but in the worst case scenario, like with the Parkinson disease, usually we have to put them on a parallel bar. Okay, on a parallel bar, the parallel bar actually helps them to control movement, okay, because of their posture going downwards this way. We put them on a parallel bar so that while they're able to control the parallel bar, we ask them to, usually we have a very long parallel bar. So parallel bar is basically, imagine like a ballerina.
Yes.
Those two. Yes, so joined together, and you are in the middle.
Yeah.
And you are supposed to walk as straight as possible with repetition.
Yeah.
And posture, we need to correct it. That's where the posture belt comes in. Not just the normal posture belt, but maybe from the cervix all the way down to your waist. And we will actually use that repetition to go over and over and over. Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so I think my model just walked in. Yes, so since you're not going to use me, where is she going to come through? Here? Okay, so she'll lay here on the...
Oh no, for now, sit.
Okay, so she sits like, okay.
Just sit, yeah.
Okay.
I should start.
Yeah, you can start. Let's run us through. So someone comes in with tremor. Doctor, do you do any physicals before? But your physicals are
it's more for examination. Yeah,
okay.
So we examine because we must establish that not all tremors are Parkinson's.
Yeah. So I was just about asking that. That doesn't mean that anyone who walks in with a tremor is about to get Parkinson's. It was funny. Why are you laughing? Please, I need to ask my question. Okay, right. So,
why are you shaking?
What?
Why are you shaking?
No, but I actually do.
Yes. So, at looking at your age, probably, and why you're shaking, we have to consider other things. Are you on any medication? Anything that? Do you have any anxiety?
Sometimes.
Are you sleep deprived?
Yes.
Are you? Well, there you have it.
You see, you don't even need to see. You don't. She has it.
You don't have to go any further. Yeah, I'm probably sleep deprived. Yes. But guys, this week I promise you, I'll sleep the entire weekend. I promise. I'm giving my viewers a promise that I'll spend time in my bed more. But there's also, are there other
What?
Are there other signs that are beyond the physical tremors we've talked about, or even the what did you call that the thing, the dopamine situation? Is there anything beyond that anyone living with Parkinson's would be experiencing?
Beyond that, yes. I mean, they also have challenges with speech and even eventually memory to a degree.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
It gets that bad.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why I said it depends on how bad the situation is. Yeah. Because
when it has gotten, please, I'm coming to. When it has gotten to the brain, what then happens to the individual?
Well, it starts at the brain.
It starts at the brain.
That's what happens, because it's a it's a problem. It's a neurological problem. So that's literally the brain and the spinal cord. So it's a neurological condition. It starts at the brain, and everything you see is a manifestation because the parts of the brain that should have normally allowed us
depleting.
It's just going away.
Ooh,
so you sitting here right now, you may be taking it for granted. Just being able to sit on a chair. Somebody with advanced Parkinson's cannot sit without support. You get it? Because even the proprioceptive feedback they get from, my bum is on the chair, so I need to adjust my back. All those micro decisions your body is making, unbeknownst to you,
becomes very, very slow.
It's gone. So it's like...
Well, I'm even being nice. He's saying it's gone. I'm being nice.
Okay, now take us through the practical. Someone just walks into your outfit with tremors, and we want to check if it is Parkinson's disease. Where do we start from? Okay, so
usually what I try to do is that, so just lift up your hand for me. Why are you scared? Okay. So if you are scared, you let me know. Okay.
Yes.
So assuming she's constantly
shaking.
Yeah, shaking, right? Yeah. This usually a person who doesn't, usually when we put this on, it helps us to just identify if you're able to control the shaking or not. So as I apply this, she's supposed to try to control the shaking.
The shaking.
Yes. Most patients will end up even shaking even more. Yes.
And that means the
and then like the posture too, because the posture they're always looking like this.
Yeah.
And previously I've said that if your posture is not aligned with your chest, there's most likely that you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now you think of your posture. Wonderful.
Oh goodness.
Okay.
So by the way, he's my physio. Like in real life, I have small back issues. So when he wants to bully me, then he says, "You need a session."
Relax, so don't jump. You're on live TV.
Yes. Charlotte will say, "Don't jump." This is my Easy in the house. She's my model. Charlotte
She's your model, eh?
Yes. Okay. So, Doc, whilst we're looking, so what you're seeing now is you.
I think I have to come around.
Okay. You need to come. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So what do you want to call what do you call what you're doing now?
So right now all I'm trying to find is, so you see someone like here, so you see how the hand is shaking?
Yeah.
Look, sorry.
Yes.
You see how the hand is shaking?
Yes.
Now, well, definitely she doesn't have Parkinson's disease.
Yes.
So you see how the hand is shaking.
Okay.
So now try and stop the shaking. Try and stop it. So you see she's able to control the shaking.
Okay.
Now relax your hand for me. Relax your hand. So you see how now it's more difficult. Now it's even stronger. Now
Yes.
control your shaking again. Good. Now relax. You see?
Wow. Interesting.
So as I press this button, it's supposed to force to move a certain finger. So now try and control it. So you see now she's firmly holding it.
Yes.
Now release it. Just relax yourself.
I see. So this person, we've established that they're healthy, they're able to...
No, I mean like that. I mean, definitely she doesn't have it. But
Yes.
if it was to be someone who has Parkinson's
Yeah.
disease, even as I press and I ask them to control, you see them going uncontrollably. That even not just this finger, but the whole thing starts to even shake even more. Another specific thing that we also do is this. This specifically for the fingers, sorry.
Okay.
So this is specifically for the fingers.
Okay.
Okay, this right here. This tiny little tiny thing here. Okay, so usually we put this on a patient. Now you see how she's firmly holding her fingers. Someone with a Parkinson's disease, as soon as we just go maybe with 3 or 5 strokes, then this whole hand starts to shake.
Just by putting that
Yeah,
rub
just
on.
so me going just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. A patient with Parkinson's disease will end up going uncontrollably. Even though I'll ask the patient to
try to control it.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes.
Wow.
Then we have this. This one, please don't jump. I beg you.
So where do you put this one? Still on the
So
hand?
I'm just showing. These are just simple tests or maybe parts.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Is this the one you like to put at the back?
Yes, you.
Guys, it's only this medical or medicine. Is he even a medicine practitioner?
Well, physical therapy is
yes.
medicine.
It's a side of medicine.
Yeah.
That when I'm going to have to meet, I literally like say, God help me. But this man is about to make me feel like my life is about to end. This one, like Mimi, if you don't wear this band, your life has ended. Literally is what he says to me.
So
Okay.
So with this, okay, so this is just a simple identification, okay, with a Parkinson's disease. So reason why we put this, so let me just set it up quickly. So you see how she moves uncontrollably with her hand. Now try to control it. So you see, she's able to control. But with a Parkinson patient, they won't even be able to do what she just did.
Oh.
They will try, but very slow, and then it will come back to square one just like this. So try and squeeze again. So you see she's able to squeeze very naturally. Now release yourself. When I ask a Parkinson's patient to squeeze their hand, it's gonna be difficult for them. As soon as they actually try to squeeze their hand like this, it just naturally goes out. Naturally. Even when they try to close like this, it comes out again. Okay. Another thing we do is now just so maybe the patient is, I ask them to just try to be as still as possible. So maybe the patient is shaking. I try them to be still. So this, why we put this on top, is because of the muscles to the phalanges. And why we do this is because see how this is down. So now Now, as her hands are opening up, now try to bring it down. So now you see she has a bit of control. With a Parkinson's patient, this is what happens. When you ask them this, they end up going.
The hands are dropping.
Yes, it keeps dropping. Even when you actually, get their attention, like, please try to hold it, they end up dropping very easily.
Okay.
But here's a case that squeeze your hand. Now you see she's able to control
the
entire hand. Obviously, with the stiffness, with Parkinson's patients, there's always constant stiffness from the neck, lower waist, and then, this is their posture most of the time. So I stand up straight like this. With a Parkinson's patient, they will probably end up doing this.
Okay.
Then watch the knees. My knees are straight too.
Okay.
Like this.
Okay.
As if they want to sit, but they are not sitting. So this restricts movement. The hamstrings end up building up a lot here. The hamstrings end up locking. With even a Parkinson's patient, even when you ask if I should even try to stretch this leg, they will probably scream. So they end up being like this, as if like a goalkeeper. So, and now you see how, so this is this is a Parkinson's patient's posture. And then you see, as I go up, this is the correct posture. You see how much of a different height you get. Yes. Don't worry.
We're done with that?
Yes. Why you want?
No. I don't want anything.
I mean, I could.
I know. Thank you very much. Right. So, I wanted to come back to Doc. When it comes to, thank you very much, Elvis, for taking us through that practical. Education on Parkinson's disease here in Ghana.
It's lacking big time.
Big time. Like we're 0 or 1%.
It's poor. It's poor. Even things as common as strokes are not really, really well understood, but people have a general idea. But every now and then I ask my patients at the hospital, say, stroke, what's it? And they'll tell you, say, obeda ho want to mean. Okay, so there's some understanding, but...
Okay, Elvis, please, you can go back to your seat.
With Parkinson's, we are lacking. Education is lacking. Terribly, yeah.
Is it a thing of, because of, and Ghanaians were like that, because of the name, it doesn't look like it's a local disease, nobody bothers?
Exactly, that's the cultural aspect is there as well. And it's also a lack of education about it.
Okay.
So when popular figures like Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali get diagnosed, it's a great, rather unfortunate for them, but also a great avenue to create some public awareness. For it. Yes, but it's generally lacking. And it typically happens in elderly individuals. And you know how superstitious our people can be.
So, to the spirit world.
Yeah, if a 70-year-old suddenly starts walking like this,
evil spirits.
What do they say? Say what? Like they'll find some superstition for it. Exactly. So there's that aspect.
Again, people can attribute it to the age again.
Exactly. Yeah. They'll say, "Oh, he's old," but meanwhile, it's Parkinson's. Aging doesn't mean you must necessarily have poor sight, tremors, poor sleep. Your function would decline gradually. That is a normal aging process. But most of the other things we see associated with aging are abnormal. That is not healthy aging. That is disease that is manifesting now after years of neglect. That's what happens. And similar to strokes and heart attacks or kidney disease, people will be walking around with undiagnosed hypertension. Your BP is like 180 or even 200 something. Never been to a clinic, don't even know what blood pressure, don't even understand what blood pressure is in the first place. How would you appreciate how it affects your kidneys if your kidneys fail and you go to the dialysis center in Kolebu right now and you see how people are packed in queues waiting to use the machine just to be able to clean out their blood? You would realize that things as simple as blood pressure is not even
a joke.
Exactly. And people are not aware. If I should ask you, what was your last blood pressure reading? Can you tell me?
It was last year.
Yeah, what was the value? Exactly. So you should absolutely know that, oh, I range between 130, 135 for systolic and maybe 80 to 90 for diastolic. So you are aware. You can start predicting your risk for these things because they are real. Let me not sugarcoat it. Come to our wards, and majority of the cases on admission and the deaths that happen simply because of uncontrolled hypertension. Yes. And it starts like this, asymptomatic. You don't feel anything, you are normal. To you, it's just a lack of sleep and a headache or some back pain. But your blood pressure is 150. And the WHO says that above 130, your risk of stroke, heart attack, kidney disease, heart failure increases significantly. And as blacks, that is our number one problem, high blood pressure related conditions. That is what kills us the most. That is what admits us in the hospital the most. That is what also leads to the stress on our hospital systems. When people are rushing for bed, somebody has collapsed, they are calling ambulance up and down. 9 times out of 10 is a stroke. But it is manageable and preventable if you knew your blood pressure early enough. Oh, last time I went, my blood pressure was 140. Doctor said maybe I should start some lifestyle to try and bring it down. So what do? I start managing my stress better. I try to sleep well. I start exercising.
So people now can be addressing my sleep issues. Is that what we're doing over here? Is that what we're doing over here?
Well, we have to point it out.
Yes. Is that what we're doing over here?
You see, I told you a long time.
Yeah, that's about like please. Yeah. I tried. I've worked on it.
Which one?
It was only last night that I didn't sleep well. Anyway,
only last night.
Indeed. Right. So the point is, education on Parkinson's is not there where it should be. So I'm glad, and that's why when I hear about programs like this, I'm eager to actually be here and also contribute.
We're actually very happy to get into such conversations that are not very well, highlighted, so that we can get some education. And like I keep telling you, we keep learning and growing together here on the platform. How do we connect with you? Are you even a doctor? Are you a doctor? Are you a doctor? Okay, Dr. Elvis. Okay, so Elvis, sorry, how do we connect with you?
If you want to connect with me, maybe you need some physio sessions, treatment, diagnosis, you can always contact me. My booking number is 020-584-1318. My booking number is 020-584-1318. Social medias, Edvardo Physique, TikTok and Instagram. You can watch all our treatments on Instagram and TikTok at Edvardo Physique or at Physio and CrossFit.
Okay. Doc.
Yes, you can find me on all social media platforms at Zack's Fever, ZACKSFEVER, or simply Dr. Zack.
Okay.
That is Dr. Zack. I should pop up if you search that within the Ghanaian context. If you see a macho man with beard, then you know it's me.
So the picture you should be looking for is a macho man with beard, okay? And then the picture you should be looking for Elvis is
Salvador.
It's Salvador, yeah. Second chance, right?
There you go.
Second chance. Go and look for Salvador on social media, you find him. Oh, goodness. But I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation this morning. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming through. Now, to you out there, like I keep telling you, we're learning and growing together. And as part of growth, we are definitely taking our health seriously. And don't be like me. Let's all learn to take our health very, very seriously, okay? Well, we'll be right back after this.